Well, hello there. It's the wee hours of the morning as I start on this little jam. Uh, Thought I'd do something a little bit different this morning. And a little something different for the chucking up the movies thingamalingy, weekly, whatever it is. I am going to weave you a little tale at a time. This is my recollections of a little bit of movie watching I did while I was living over in Europe. Now, this was 1975, so this is between 74, 75. I was 12, 13 years old. My dad was a defense contractor. He worked for Raytheon, and my family lived over there until my crazy autistic ass fucked it up because I was too disorganized and crazy for their for the American School of Paris's system. And so I kind of blew it for my whole family in that respect. I could have been up there maybe 3 or 4 years, but, 'twas not to be, and it was largely my fault, but, what are you going to do? Anyway, it was an interesting time. Wasn't always a fun time, but it was an interesting time. And one thing that we used to do on Friday nights. Now, the TV system in France, back at that time anyway, was kind of like the BBC in that they didn't have a whole big selection. They may have had 2 or 3 channels, 2 or 3 national channels. And it's one show we like to watch on Friday nights. It usually start kind of late, and then wind down sometime around 11 o'clock or midnight or whatever. But they would show foreign movies, and they'd have them subtitled for the French people, and frequently there would be American movies. Although not always. I saw a lot of interesting movies that way. This one film I saw was M. The great German classic M. Shown in the German. Shown in the German with French subtitles, and I didn't speak German, didn't know German, was not exactly fluent in French, but I found it pretty easy to follow along with anyway, for the most part. And Fritz Lang's M, the great M with Peter Lorre, and that movie took my head off, and it still does. A couple of the other ones I recall seeing, I think at one point they were in Casino Royale, the original 60s Casino Royale with David Niven and Woody Allen and Peter Sellers, etc., etc. Silly ass movie, but it kind of made an impact on me. I was watching a lot of the Bond films and reading a lot of the books at that time, and so I was kind of into that. And the spoof, of course, just wow, camp and comedy. Yeah, I was all about it. But a lot of the stuff they showed, let me think, they had some old classics, some old near classics. One I remember was uh, Letter from an Unknown Woman. That was one that they showed. And my recollection of this movie was, just kind of desperate, depressing love story. This concert pianist is getting ready to kind of go off and do some kind of jail time or prison time for avoiding tax payments or something to that effect. But as he's kind of preparing for that whole journey, he finds this letter and reads it front to back. Long ass letter that he reads from front to back, and it's from this woman who obviously has followed him and known him over the years, and she recollects a time when he saw when she kind of crushed on him as a little kid or as a young girl, and at one point held open a door for him, and she beaming at him, and he barely even noticed. But just they've crossed paths numerous times over the years, and eventually he fathered a son with her, and she ran off pregnant, and he's kind of reading this whole story and becoming more and more riveted by it, and then pretty much reads at the end that both she and the child have died of oh god, I'm trying to think, it was real big disease at that time. Yeah, big disease coming at you. Keep wanting to think sepsis. It wasn't sepsis. Typhoid. Yeah. Typhoid Mary. But so he basically finds out just at the very end of the letter, there's a little envelope on it saying that she and the kid have died, and with that note, he gets escorted off to jail or prison or whatever it is, and on his way out the door, he looks behind him and sees the phantom of a young girl smiling at him and holding the door open for him, which that's either the sappiest movie in the world or it's just kind of a genuine gut punch. I couldn't tell you from this many years on. At the time I watched it and I was like, this is stupid. Maybe it was alright. It seemed fairly affecting. I don't know. No telling. But and the other one I remember was a big one. And as I do this little rant, it was like the Deep Images podcast is kind of headlong into our examination of noir, and one of the big ones of noir kind of popped up on there, and it was Lady from Shanghai, the Orson Welles flick, Orson Welles and oh god, what's her name, Rita Hayworth, who were kind of going through their divorce at the time or separation or whatever, and that's why I need to revisit, because very artfully done and everything. I just kind of recall it very, very convoluted, but at the end of the day I was like, just another kind of bleak, depressing ending, which I just was not used to at my time. It happened, and my dad's whole take on it was just oh wow, another sappy ending. And of course it's apparently a real good movie, so it's a great movie, so I need to check that out at some point. I'm kind of hot and cold on Wells, but with my current noir fixation, I'm willing to give it a look. But those were some of the movies that are the ones I remember the most in France, and while I was living in France. Another one that popped up, kind of, I don't think it was shown in that slot, but it was shown regardless. And yeah, I've been hearing about the Marx Brothers a lot, and we wound up catching, one night. I think we had a babysitter. My parents had gone out and they were carousing that night, and carousing in Paris, and us kids were left with, one of the local teen babysitters, and we were kind of left to our own devices, and the Marx Brothers came on TV, and it was A Night at Casablanca. Now, this is kind of historically one that's not real well liked. It's like their second to last film, and but I pretty much learned after quite a lot of hype, man, I like the Marx Brothers, and of course that personally I still have a fair amount of fondness for that flick. I think despite the fact they were way past their prime, and yeah, I think it was actually better than the last couple of offerings they did at MGM, and it actually kind of had a kind of a telltale sign of them having their teeth back. And of course, the last movie was Love Happy, which didn't have a whole lot of teeth, but yeah, that kind of whetted my appetite for more Marx Brothers, and so that was kind of one I enjoyed a great deal. But yeah, so that's the Paris Cinema Club experience, as it were, and we will be back with something probably slightly more face smashing in the next installment, but hoping all goes well. Hope you're all doing well. Anyway, nighty night.